So I chose to unpack the standard English language arts reading foundational skills kindergarten 1D. The standard is about recognize and name all the uppercase and lowercase letters of the alphabet. Unpacking the standard, I'm looking at the two verbs, recognize and name all the uppercase and lowercase letters of the alphabet. The big idea is, of course, all about uppercase and lowercase letters, and then the skills that the students have to develop is to recognize and to name all the letters. And in other words, students should have a strong understanding of letters A to Z, their forms, and the associated sounds. So before I continue, I would just like to give you some background and the situation of my class currently and the reason for unpacking this specific standard. So I am currently teaching K1 kindergarten students who I started teaching in September 2019. More than half of my students were unable to read or to say any alphabet letters when they started. So since September until January, I mainly focused my students on having a strong understanding of letters A to Z, their forms, and their associated sounds. I believe a strong understanding of letters and sounds will help my students develop a higher level of reading skills. So the second semester will start now from February 20 to June 30th. This time I will focus mostly on short vowel sounds and word families like p, at, s, it, and p, ik. One of the common core state standards that I will focus on during the second semester is English Language Arts Standards, Reading Foundational Skills Kindergarten 2, which is to demonstrate understanding of spoken words, syllables, and sounds. However, before I can move on to this phonological awareness, I want to make sure that all my students have a strong understanding of all the letters A to Z, their forms, and their associated sounds. Thus, during the first 2 weeks of the second semester, I will review the letters A to Z and use the materials I discussed in this 5-day lesson plan below to determine which letters and sounds my students already know. This will also enable me to know which students would need to be challenged more, which students are on target, and then also who are my SPED students. So continuing to my 5-day lesson plan, I would talk about activities and assessments that I would use to meet the standard that I have chosen to unpack. So day 1, I would start my class with a song by Jack Hartman, See It, Say It, Sign It. And then after the song, I would continue with a PowerPoint presentation, show the letters of the alphabet on the screen, and then maybe, for example, say A, A is for alligator, A is for astronaut, A is for apple. So the students would repeat it after me. Number 3 is I would divide my students into teams of 3. I would choose a student from each team, hand each student a hammer, and then put the flashcards on the floor. Teacher would say the letter, and the first student who will hit the card or the letter and say the sound of the letter, they score a point for their team. I would then give them an assessment, which is an exit ticket. So for example, letter recognition exit ticket R, they have to color or circle the lowercase and capital letter R. Continuing to day 2, I will once again start my class with a song. This time we would listen, watch, and dance with the alphabet animals. Secondly, I would give an activity. This time it's an alphabet tracing book. The students have to use their fingers and trace the letters, and as they trace it, they have to say capital A, lowercase a. All the students have to finish the book, and then what I would also do is the stronger student would put them with the students who are struggling and maybe ask them to help them and assist them as they are reading, so they would serve as a little teacher. The assessment on day 2 would be an upper and lowercase letter puzzle. So students have to put together the capital and the lowercase letters. During this time, me and my Chinese co-teacher would walk around the classroom. We would observe and take notes who we consider to be level 1, level 2, and level 3 students. We also make use of data sheets to keep track of students' progress, and it looks basically like this. So this would be only for lowercase letters, and then we would keep note and record of the student understanding. Continuing to day 3, I would start the class with a draw and say the letter. So I have a box or a bag, and then I have a lot of alphabet flashcards in the bag. The students have to randomly draw an alphabet letter and then say the letter and the sound of the flashcard that they draw. I would once again do an activity. This time I would give them letter sorting maths. It looks something like this. So for example, if this student has A and B, he would have a mixture of letters A and B, which is written in different fonts to help them to generalize their knowledge across different fonts and handwriting. This afternoon on day 3 and day 4 during center time, which is usually after nap time, our center time is an hour. I would have an individual center. I would call students one on one and then I would assess them in specifically 5 areas. So pointing to letters would be that I would have students point to letters in a random order and maybe say the letter. Labeling letters, I would say the letter. The student have to point to the letter that I say. So if I say A, the student has to point to A. Receptive letter sound is I would make the sound of letter like A and the student has to point to A. Expressive letter sounds is I would point to a letter and then the student have to say the sound of the letter. So I would point to B and the student has to make the sound of the letter B. Then on day 4, I would once again start with a game. This time it would be something like musical chairs, but I call it musical alphabet. I would stick different alphabet letters on the chairs. Once I stop the music, the students have to sit down and then I would ask them to say the letters and make the sound of the letter that they sat on. If they are unable to do it, then it is game over for them. The activity on day 2 would be sequencing alphabet. The students have to sequence, put the alphabet in order basically, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but they will get a mixture of letters, so they have to find either capital or lowercase. They can mix it, doesn't matter. And to make this easier, maybe for level 2 or level 3 students, I would put the letter A there but not the letter B, and maybe put the letter C there but not the letter D, so they have to maybe just fill in the second letter. Or another thing I would do for my SPED student, I would just make a copy of all the letters. I would make an extra A and then I have to put A on top of A, B put on top of B, so they don't have to fill in any gaps. They just have to find the matching letter. The assessment, as I said, would be the same as day 3. I would continue during center time. Then based on the assessment results throughout the week, I would then divide the activities for today in 3 levels. Activity 1 would be for level 1 for the more challenging students, or I would give them something like this. So they have to be able to know the image before they can know which letters it starts with. This will help them to demonstrate their ability to hear, recognize, and match the initial spot of a word. Then for the level 2 students, I will have identify initial sound puzzles. So I would maybe give them either just the alligator and they have to know, okay, this is alligator, so I have to find capital A, lowercase a, or to make it a bit easier for them, I would maybe give them an alligator with an capital A and they just have to find the lowercase a. And then for the SPED students, I would make a copy of this and I would cut it in 3 pieces and they just basically have, similar to the previous activity, they just have to find the other alligator, put it on top of this alligator, find the other uppercase A, put it on top of this uppercase A, and find the lowercase a, put it on top of this lowercase a. Then I would just like to mention the reason why I use a lot of activities and games in my lesson plan is because I am teaching ELL students. So as I mentioned, when they start K1, they are usually unable to speak any English. So the fastest way and the best way to teach them English is to make it hands-on, interactive, active as much as possible. And this is the reason why I use a lot of songs and activities in my classes. And then finally, I will talk about the next steps. This is for the students who need to review and to practice more. So basically by the end of this 5-day lesson plan, most students are able to recognize and to name all the uppercase and lowercase letters. However, for the 1 or 2 students that might need more practice, including my SPED students, I will use center time each day to practice and review more with them. I will also inform their parents and will send home alphabet game and flashcards that the parents could do with their children at home to practice and review more. And that is basically it for unpacking a standard. Thank you for your time. Bye bye.